And we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to TTSN, the Transformational Squirrel Network, where we make shift happen. We're excited. Oh dear, I've got something going on here, some feedback. There we go. We're so excited to have you here tonight. Tonight we have a guest on whose passion is to help others find their way back to well-being. Now, she works with physical, emotional, and mental symptoms and wants to help you. Welcome, Tyla Johnston. We're happy to have you here. We know you have taken many different courses. When I look at the list, it is extensive. So many body talk courses, Mindscape, Reiki, Kid Code, and so many others that I can't even make a mention of all of the list. It is extensive. So we're excited to have you here, and we're excited to hear about your journey. What brought you to this point?
Well,
welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time out of their day to come and listen, because time is one of such a valuable thing that we can't get back. So for all of them that are listening and those that are catching the replay, I appreciate your time to come and hear me speak. So I started my body talk journey probably in my late 20s. I grew up in Esterhazy. I had left for a bit, did some photography, and ended back up in Esterhazy. And I was trying to make my business a go and working full-time at the bar. And there was just things that I thought I was happy, but I knew that there was something more to life there. I knew that there was something that I was not getting there. And ever since like grad, I just kind of wanted to meet my husband and have kids. That was kind of like, just let me start my life. And my reflexologist was kind of semi-retiring, and I was in this little bit of a panic going, oh my God, like who's going to offer that service here in Esterhazy? So that was my first kind of start. I took my reflexology course. I did all 3 courses. I didn't write the exam to become certified. And at the same time, my girlfriend had taken this body talk course. And so she said, hey, let's do an exchange. And I thought, well, that's a great deal. So I literally laid on her couch, and she sat on the coffee table, and she held my hand, and she, talked to me about some things. And I remember laying there going, the heck is she doing? Like she didn't really explain it. And I got off the couch, and I didn't really feel any different. Not like when you go for a massage or it wasn't like I experienced any big shifts in the session. But every time we got together, there was something that went going back. And at the time I was working at the bar, and we had one particular customer that was not everyone, like he would walk in and no waitress wanted to take his table. Just very specific, and he'd tend to, complain and it would throw everyone's mood kind of off. And so that particular night I said, it's okay, I'll take the table. Brought out his food. He complained, and I said, no problem. So sorry about that. I'll get it, get it looked after. I didn't cook the food. So I took the food back to the kitchen, and all the waitresses followed me and said, what do you what? Because normally that would have sent me up into a reaction. I'd be like, seriously, we're busy. And I would have made it an issue. And in that moment, there was a point that I was like, there's something to this. There's something that shifted in me. And now all of a sudden my external environment was no longer reflecting what I used to, because it was usually, everything that happens in your external environment is a reflection of what's going on with you.
Yes.
So it really kind of dived deep. Shortly after that, I kind of left, I kind of got thrown into the universe, kind of led me in, and I applied for CN as a railroad conductor and thought this was my ticket. This was my secure job. I was gonna, no more not having that unstable income of being self-employed. And so I did that for about 9 months. I'm still doing body talk, and I got laid off after 9 months of working for CN. And I remember driving to Saskatoon for training, closed my business. I had like 9 weddings booked that summer. And I thought, what am I doing? Like, but the transition was just, it just happened. It was just effortlessly. It was the first time I really felt something feel like organic. Like it was just happening. And I was just kind of rolling with it. And it was such an amazing experience. Yeah, so then I got laid off, and because I was laid off, unemployment insurance would help me with some training. And so I thought, well, I'll just take the first part of the modules of BodyTalk. And the first course is a 4-day course. And yeah, I was hooked. And it has changed the way I live my life, because for so much of my life, I looked externally and felt like I had to fix everything outside of me. So if it was a relationship, I worked on the external relationship. If it was finances, if it was, until I got into BodyTalk to realize that it had nothing to do with anything in my external environment. It was everything in my internal. And so for the first time, I was empowered, because if I can change, I can't change anyone out here, but if I can change the reflection of my life externally from doing work internally, it gave me such an empowering feeling to be able to now make those shifts and changes. And so, yeah, it was, it's been an amazing journey, and it's literally how I live my life. So some of my girlfriends who might be listening will often tell me to shut the body talker off. Out for drinks, and they'll say something, and I'll, have a comment or a suggestion or get them to explore something. And so that's kind of their joke, is like, shut the body talker off. But it's literally not separate. It is, it's how I view things, and I'm always exploring, and I'm always wanting to know the why. Even if you ask my mom, my daughter is now 4, and so she'll say, "Why, Mom? Why?" And my mom will go, "Oh, isn't this like to bite you in the," because that's how I was as a child. And I kind of giggle, because I'm like, I'm still that way. I want to know why.
Yeah. Why?
Versus that's just what it is.
Right.
So yeah, so it's been I'm a continuous learner. I love to. The great thing about BodyTalk is that in our protocol chart at the end, there's other modalities. So even if you're using BodyTalk as a base, I can pull in any of my other tools to use in the system. So it integrates well with anything.
Yeah. So I wonder if you can tell our audience what BodyTalk is, because I'm sure they're all curious and sitting on the edge of their seat listening to you talking.
Yes.
So.
Right.
So BodyTalk is, they call it a conscious-based system. And so it's founded by Dr. John Beltine. He's originally from Australia, but now lives in Sarasota and Florida. And he really found there were so many systems. So if you look at acupuncture, it works with the meridians. If you look at massage, works with muscles. So he saw that there was even Reiki works with the energies, and he saw that there were so many separate systems, but not something that encompassed us as a whole. And so his goal was to create a system that encompassed everything. So he designed a BodyTalk protocol chart, which you can see in the background. So it's a fairly complex chart, but what he does is that he gets it to be able us to have a chart to flow through to basically please the left brain. So the masculine brain that needs the logic, that needs the linear. So we have now this system. So then once we get that system memorized, then the feminine can come in and dance, and it kind of creates a play between the two. And so it works on 4 levels. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And one cannot be affected without the other. So we know if we don't deal with something emotionally, eventually it's going to show up physically. And vice versa. If I got into a car accident and I dealt with the physical, there's still going to be a ton of emotional, mental stuff from that injury that I'm still going to have to work through. So even though in a session we work with one area, it doesn't mean the other ones don't shift,
Mhm.
because we're working on the whole body. And the other thing that was really important in the system is that we're one of the few systems out there that asks permission. So our first question is a permission, needing to see if we have permission from the mind, body, and spirit. And sometimes there's a level of body that won't give me permission. And then we just need to explore why. So at one level, there was a lady that suffered from migraines, and she came in and I couldn't get permission. So then we had to explore why. So I'm like, okay, well, how are you benefiting from these headaches? And she's like, oh God, like I don't, like I'm a mother of 4. Like when I get them, they're so bad. I have to go to the basement, sit in the dark. And I'm like,
Yeah, you're withdrawing from all of the busyness in your life, right?
So I'm like, no wonder your body doesn't want to get rid of the headaches. That's the only time you're taking a break. That's the only time you're asking your husband for help. That's the only time so the body's like, oh my God, please do not get rid of these headaches, because then we're not going to have anything left to get us through the day. So it was really important to be able to know that there's we're getting permission. Sometimes it can be, I might be the culprit. So if I'm going into the session, I'm thinking, oh, what do I have going on today? And what time do I have to pick up the kids up for school? What am I making for supper? And I'm not focused, then I will be the permission. So I need to take time to reset myself, get myself grounded, because I'm not in a space to do the session. So how the session looks is that we're working with the innate wisdom. So our innate wisdom is our inborn ability to heal ourselves. So it's when I cut myself, I don't have to think, okay, blood clot, form a scab, create a scar. It just automatically does it. Our bodies are designed to heal itself. But what happens is through day-to-day stress, trauma, stuff that's happened, active memories, belief systems, things that we think have happened to us, our perception of different situations, start breaking up this line of communication. So then the liver says, you know what, screw the rest of you guys, I'm just going to be a liver. But as soon as he does that, he compromises the whole body, because everyone needs to be in proper communication with everyone else. So we use neuromuscular biofeedback, which is just an advanced form of muscle checking. So the client will program my hand. So they will push down on their hand as I lift their hand up, and I'll tell the body that that's a no. Then they'll relax their hand and I'll lift the hand up saying that's a yes. And now we have a way of communicating with that innate wisdom. So then I just ask a series of yes and no questions to navigate through the protocol chart to find out where those lines of communication have been compromised. So I never get bored, because everyone comes in with their very unique story. So I don't have a formula for headaches. I don't have a formula for arthritis. I don't have a formula. It's everyone has their own unique story of why that is, because we never want to treat the symptoms. We want to go to the root cause. So I had one client fill out her intake form, and she had arthritis, and she kept saying to me, well, I have arthritis. Well, I have, and I'm like, I'm not saying you don't have arthritis. Like, I'm wanting to know why. What's going on that has created this aspect. And it was interesting. The more we got into the session, she had such an identity to I am arthritic. So when we actually started to work on it, it was like, that was where her story was. That's where she got the attention. That's where she got people to listen to her, because so the more this became, so then all of a sudden she felt threatened. If I actually healed the arthritis, she would lose part of that identity.
Yeah, definitely.
So
and that's just a diagnosis. It's not the actual root, right? It's just a symptom of what is actually happening.
And so, and I'm not saying that, that it wasn't her reality, but because it was her reality and it was working for her, there was an attachment that she actually didn't want to heal it.
Absolutely. It's like any label that you lose, right? It's like when a woman gets married and she loses her maiden name, she loses that piece of her identity, right? So same kind of thing.
Yeah. Or the mom that their kids all graduate and go to school, and then they go, oh my God.
Yes.
Now what?
Right. Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's, for me, it's very like curious, and I always go in with like, you know, this, because every session is completely different and every session has a different, but it's amazing how things that come up can be related to their experience and related to like, and people won't even know, but they just resonate with it. They're like, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like, oh, like, you know, I'm kind of asking for examples, or like, why does it make sense to you? Or like, and they're like, I don't know, but it just makes sense. They can just feel that energy that we're working with. So,
Right.
Awesome.
And so
what
when
can
you're doing your body
Sorry.
talk, do you bring in your other modalities that you have trained with?
Yep. It will often take me, so I use Bodytalk as a hub. It's kind of my starting point, and then anything that I need will come up. It'll take me to other modalities, and then I'll just explore what is it that I know. And sometimes it's other modalities, and it's actually something the client knows. So maybe they have a modality, or from their glasses of their, maybe it's their job or their role they play in the family, or so sometimes it can actually come up as something that they have that we can utilize that to shift and get some awareness. So,
Oh, fantastic.
so once we have the formula, we then just do a series of tapping. So we tap over the head, heart, and abdomen, and those are considered the three brains. So our intellectual brain, our heart brain, and then the the digestive system there's a ton of research of how it integrates. So if there's something going on in the digestive system, is often reflected in the brain. And so it's really important to then get everyone on board and make them shift. So if you think of it, it's kind of like we tap over the brain. Once we have the formula, it's tapping over the brain to run the program, tapping over the heart to save the program, and then the digestive system is really integrating that to every cell. So the sessions can last anywhere. We always charge by session versus time, because it really depends on the body. But I always block out an hour. So even if the session is short, we still have time where we can chat or visit, or if they have questions. And I always give a little bit of time for that first session. Just most of the time clients have more questions on their first session than once they kind of get the first session, then it's really kind of diving into it, and they don't need me to explain as much. So,
right. So you had mentioned arthritis, and so what all can Bodytalk address? Like, is it many things or just a few things? What all can we address?
It is a hard question to pinpoint. We've had lots of success in a lot of different areas, but really anything physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I would say I have two types of clients. One client is there to very symptom base. So they have a symptom, they come to me, we do some work, the symptom relieves, and then I don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
And then another symptom comes back, and then they come back and go, hey, well, you helped me with my sore elbow. Now my ankle's bugging me. Can you help me with my ankle? And so it's very symptom focused, which is still fine. And then I have clients that are very proactive, and they want to continue to do the work so that they don't get the symptoms.
Right.
So that was where I was like, I want to learn and grow, and I want to keep, you know, when things bother me or something happens in my external environment where I'm triggered, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Well, I want to see where I don't have to get the headaches. I don't have to get, you know, the frozen shoulder or something to get my attention to go, hey, what the heck's going on with this? And then finding out it's something that happened 3 months ago that I haven't let go of.
Right.
So just two different styles of clients. But I've had great success with depression, anxiety, fertility. Just, I think most all, it's people just getting a sense back to themselves, which I think was my kind of journey, is that I really didn't know who I was.
Right.
And I really had to start peeling away all of the aspects and personality traits that I thought I needed to be and who I thought I needed to be.
Yes.
So then when you peel away all of those, to see what's left.
Right. And you peel away the beliefs that came from other people that you gleaned along the way that they shared with you thinking that they were doing good for you, when in fact might not be your belief at all. And you hold on to that because you think that that's yours when you
And
realize it's not.
And a part of, for me at that time, I think I needed it at that time.
Yeah.
So BodyTalk has three, they call them life sciences, and one is breakthrough. And breakthrough is it works you through a 7-step process. So it's you start with a trigger, something that's upset you or made you mad or created an emotion. And it works you through a 7-step process to find out what the subconscious belief system is. And so it's amazing. I enjoy the feeling afterwards. I don't necessarily enjoy the process of being in it. But my husband actually took it. And so when we had our first child, he was very, very cautious of the words we used, and because he didn't want to give them any belief systems.
Right.
And so I'm like, you have no control.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if we don't say it. I mean, there could be someone in the grocery store that says something, and that's the belief system they have to choose. So we don't get it's still part of our process. It's still part of that kind of journey to get those belief systems to then verify, is this true or not?
Yeah, totally. Just depends on what's happening in that moment as to whether you take that as your belief or not, or you always have a choice, right?
Yeah, like most of our belief systems are established from 0 to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get to choose. We don't go, I choose this belief system and not this one.
Right.
No choice. It happens.
Exactly.
But as it happens, that's the kind of groundwork that allows us then to learn from that conflict, or to learn from what that feels like, or so that we can then explore it too. So it's all kind of divine. It's all happening for a reason.
Absolutely. Miles has a comment here. He says, body talk has always mystified me as to its way of working successfully. Admiration. And Yvonne is asking, do you give any at-home work or instructions in between your sessions?
I let the client dictate that. Sometimes there is homework, but it might be something like, give yourself 3 compliments for the next 15 days and you can't repeat the compliments. Or, and I just really let the body dictate what that work is. I know there was a client in Regina. I worked for a short period of time at a practice in Regina. And so at the end of her session, it was really about, she needed to take time for herself. And that's all I said. But then the next time she came back for her session, her husband came in, and he came in and sat in the chair, and he had his arms crossed, and it was like, okay. And so we get into the session. He's like, I'm just here to see what you're doing is like legit. And I'm like, okay, is there a reason? And he's like, well, because the last session my wife came to, she came home, packed her bags, and went to Moose Jaw for the weekend. Because you told her. And I'm like, well, I didn't tell her to go to Regina. I didn't tell her to go to Moose Jaw for the weekend. I just said she needed to take time for herself.
Awesome.
Which could have been 10 minutes to go for a walk or have a bath. But
go have a hot bath, yeah.
That client needed to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He needed to hear it was a weekend in Moose Jaw. So I admired her to take that initiative and take what she needed, whatever she felt she needed to do in that moment, in that time. So then I explored with him and I said, so how was she when she got back? And he kind of choked up and he says, well, I feel like I got my wife back.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
So he saw the results. He just was unclear of, what I was doing to tell her.
What's your motive?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think most of us are not living our life to our fullest potential.
Right.
I think a lot of us are doing what we feel we have to do. And oftentimes, like this, and I mean, I would say 80% of my clients are women. And when I ask them when's the last time you asked yourself, what is it that you want to do? A lot of them can't remember. And I'm like, it all needs to get done, whether it's the laundry but in that moment, maybe just ask yourself, what is it that I want? What do I want to do today? I mean, eventually it's all going to get done, but from a different energy, from a different place, from a different sense of honoring what we want to do versus always feeling this is what I have to do.
Right. And more of what do I get to do today? You know? Yeah.
So what does well-being mean to you? Like, I think many people have a different take on what it means, or have maybe not even ever explored what that means for themselves. So what does it mean to you?
The first word that comes for me is hope. That there is an answer, that there is a solution, that there is something that I can obtain to make a change, versus when I'm not like prior to Body Talk and having that that feeling of well-being, I just thought everyone was like this. I thought I was normal. And I was a master coper. So literally when I got into Body Talk, one of the practitioners cut me off of Body Talk. She says, no more, you can't. And I'm like, what? She's like, because you're still coping. You just now have better tools. So anytime something came into my life, I was like, oh, let's just get a session. Let's just get a break. Let's just do Mindscape. And I was just, versus like, she's like, you still need to go through life and see what you still need to live life and not just have more coping.
Not just have sessions.
So that it's just that sense of, I don't know, that I have all the answers. That's another thing, that I never want a client to depend on me for their well-being. I want to give them information and skill sets and ideas and ways to think about different things so that they can empower themselves. Because the interesting thing is that I just found a system that really works well for me. I love it. And so when I got married, because I love it, I wanted him to love it too. And he was a champ. He did sessions and he did classes. And then he came to me and one day and said, I don't think Body Talk's for me. And I remember being kind of disappointed and going, oh, that's too bad. But I agreed. But then he started into woodworking, and he would go to the garage and come back in the house and he goes, I've been thinking. And I'd be like, oh, what? So then in that moment, I realized, like, just because I do the work this way doesn't mean he's not doing work. It's not like he's not looking into himself. It's not like he's looking at concepts or things differently. He just doesn't need Body Talk as a system to get him there. So it's like almost like a form of meditation for him, where ideas can just come up. So, and I mean, our external environment is completely just getting us to see what's going on inside of here. So you don't, once you become aware, every day is teaching you something.
Right. Isn't that the truth? Like every experience that you have, I know my mind goes to, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? Right. That's where my mind automatically goes. Miles is asking, if you were to share one huge positive change you saw from a client, what would it be, if you're able to share?
So I only saw the client, I think it was his first or second session. It was December of last year, I want to say, or maybe it was the year before. And it was just kind of a regular session. There wasn't any really huge big ahas or like went, wow, that's so cool, for me anyway. And at the end of the session, he went to the door, he stopped, turned around and asked if he could give me a hug. And I said, oh, absolutely. So he gave me a hug and he says, I think you saved my life.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was like,
oh, that gives me full body shivers.
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
And he was just on that cusp. He was suffering from depression, and he was just on that cusp. And he says, that valley looked pretty deep. And it was a dark road to look down. And so of course I went home and told my husband, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's so like, and of course he looked at me and said, no one at Mosaic's going to tell me that I saved.
No doubt.
But it's just a different impact. It's just giving people that hope that things can be different. Because I think we get, when we're in it, we can't see.
Yes.
We can't see the light.
Right.
But if you look at, and people will often use the word shadow work, but if you look at any shadows, the shadow only exists because there's light.
Yes.
Right.
It's just we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We're focusing on the shadow instead of focusing on the light that casts the shadow.
Absolutely. You know,
And not
that
to say that the
reminds
shadow,
me-
there isn't something in the shadow for us to see.
Right. It reminds me of the village, I believe it's in Africa, where, you know, somebody does something wrong, which in my opinion is that shadow, right? Rather than telling that person that they're bad or blaming or shaming, they put that person in the center of a circle with people all around them, and for an entire day they bless that person and they tell them all the beautiful things that they've done, why they're such a wonderful being, how much they love him or her. And it's just the most amazing community. And wow, wouldn't it be a blessing to live in a place like that?
Chad says Ubuntu. That's what it is.
Ubuntu. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chad. Yeah.
Good job, Chad.
Yeah. It's amazing. Beautiful.
And how many of us do that to ourselves?
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I've met a lot of people, and I mean, the things that people say to themselves, they wouldn't say to their worst enemy.
Right. Yeah.
And yet
I don't do that anymore.
we feel it's
Yeah.
okay that we can be hard on ourselves or give ourselves a hard time or have high expectations or, yeah, it's probably the worst thing we can do for ourselves, because then that's going to be our reflection.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about you teaching us a powerful body talk technique.
Yeah.
I think we should do that now before we run out of time or whatever.
So the technique is cortices. It is the only technique in the BodyTalk system that can be taught. So once you learn it, you can teach it to anybody that you want to. There's lots of YouTube videos, and you can find it on the BodyTalk website. And the focus of the technique is to get the right and left hemispheres of the brain talking. So to improve this communication. So again, anything that's usually happening externally or within our body is reflected within the mind. And so if there's separation or there's not a balance between the two hemispheres of the brain, it can create imbalance in other areas. Also, the hemispheres also represent masculine and feminine energy. So that can always create some conflict between the two. And so our focus is that when we do the technique, we want to improve circulation to the brain. We want to get the right and left hemispheres brain communicating. And they've actually done where the cold spots where there's no activity in the brain, we want to get those cold spots warm up. So really create more communication within the hemispheres of the brain. So when we do the technique, the hand on your head, your fingers are going to be closed. So you're going to start at the back of your head. And it's kind of like right at the base of the skull. And then this hand that you're going to do the tapping with, you want to make sure that you're touching both hemispheres of the brain. And it's just a light tap. So you're going to do two full inhales and exhales with each hand position. So as you're tapping, even though I'm tapping my hair, my focus and intent is the whole brain. And then you're going to move to your heart. And you're tapping over the sternum. And even though I'm tapping over my shirt, my focus and my intent is the heart. And then over the belly button or the abdomen, focusing on the digestive system. And now you're going to move to the next hand position. And so you can actually move your hand up, or I like to switch hands. So then I take this hand and butt it up against the other hand, and then take this one off. And you're just going to kind of walk your hands right to the eyebrows, to the prefrontal cortex. So very with every inhale and exhale, you're just thinking about the right hemisphere talking to the left hemisphere. So getting that communication, it's like a telephone call. If somebody phones and you don't pick up the receiver, there's no communication. Okay. And then you're just going to bump your hand up against the next one. So the focus is that you're covering both parts of the brain. So you're telling this part of the brain to talk to this part of the brain. That's why our fingers is closed, to make sure that every part of the brain is being connected. This is usually how I start my day. Kids, this is a great technique for those that are writing exams. If you're going to sleep, I teach the access course, which is the cortices technique is part of that access course. And I had one client to take it just so she basically took the class just to learn cortices so it could help her go to sleep. Like I said, you could learn that technique online, but
Yeah.
I'm sure she used the other techniques as well. But yeah, she had a hard time falling asleep, and this is what helped her go to sleep. So it's whatever your brain is wanting to work on or needing to do. It's it's really integrating that to get it optimally working for that task. So you want to make sure that you cover right to the eyebrows when you're doing the prefrontal cortex. And then at the end, we're just going to do the limbic brain, which encompasses also covering the amygdala. So we're holding on to both sides, just connecting. And then you're going to take one hand off. And then I always put another one back just to anchor the energy. So if you are doing this technique on somebody else, it's either, so they can either hold the hand positions and you do the tapping, or you can hold the hand positions and they can do the tapping. But when we go to the limbic brain, it either needs to be both your hands or both their hands. So it can't be like if you were tapping out my cortices, you couldn't use one of my hand and one of your hands, because it's the connection between the two palms. So you can also do this from a distance. My children, I had one that had a lot of emotional meltdowns, and I couldn't even get close to him when he was younger. And so I would just stand back from him. I would tap out my own cortices with my focus and intent for him. And usually by the third time, by the third hand position, he was coming to me, already starting to calm down and relax. And you just have to be careful on the focus of an intent. If he's gone to his room and he's having a meltdown, then I won't, because we want him to be able to have those emotions, and he's removed himself. And so you just have to be careful that you're doing it for the right reasons, and it's doing to help them versus because you want it. Sometimes they will tell you they don't want it. So it's just to honor that.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that I also can do sessions distantly. So within that, we just do it intuitively. We take a course called Mindscape. And again, it's to really build on your intuition, and anybody can take that class. And from that class, instead of having someone's hand, I basically just have like a red light, green light in my mind's eye, and we are able to navigate through that way. So I have clients in Alberta and BC and some in the States, and yeah, I can treat from afar. So it becomes, you know, a lot of people think that they need to be there physically, and I'm like reading their energy or having being in their energy. But some people are now, because of COVID, when people couldn't see me, I have a lot of now clients actually preferring the distance because I record the session and then send it to them. So then they can listen to it at their own time. They can re-listen to it if they want to, which, yeah, they've actually really see the advantage of it versus it being kind of like was taken away from them.
Right, because now they have the opportunity. Sometimes when you're in it, you're missing pieces of it, right? So they now have the opportunity to experience the entire thing and relive that so that they can get the benefits of it more than one time. Yeah. Fantastic.
And sometimes it's tricky because we all like stories, and sometimes we can get a lot of details in our body talk sessions. And we have to be very careful not to become attached to those stories, because the purpose is to bring the story up so we can release it and let it go. So some people kind of get caught up in like the story of what's being revealed, and then it's actually more embedded. So we have to be careful that it's from you don't get attached to the session, because that can be tricky too, where people like to become attached to what we worked on, which then just creates more energy of the same story.
Yes, and we don't want to hold on to that kind of energy either.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all part of the journey and part of what we're all here for. And I think a lot of people give us like, think a lot of people come with the aspect of like needing to be fixed, or there's something wrong. And it's already coming from a place of rejection.
Right.
And so we really need to, and that's not my goal. There's nothing to be fixed.
Right.
It's your perception or the identity that you think you are that actually needs to be worked with. It's never the true you.
Yeah, there's truly nothing ever wrong. It's you are getting signs to tell you that, there are things that can support you in a better way.
Or no longer serve you.
Or no longer serve
you at a point in time.
Right.
That may not be serving you anymore, especially if there's getting conflict from them.
Absolutely. Yes.
Shift of your perception.
Absolutely.
And it's starting to now like see that. And again, I also think like, I mean, I love body talk, but body talk's not the one end and be all. It's all, to trust what you need. So I always tell people when I do public presentations, if the knowledge that you are, or the information you're getting seems like it resonates with you, but I don't resonate with you, then I encourage people to seek out another practitioner. Because whoever is on my table is still a reflection of me. There's no coincidence who's on my table.
Yes.
Right.
And so if they're like, wow, that sounds really cool, but I really don't jam with Tyla, then take what you need from the information and seek and find somebody who does resonate with you, who you do connect with.
Yeah.
And if it's not body talk, but you're really interested in another modality, then it's to encompass everything. And that's why when some people will say like, they'll come for body talk and they're going, well, I'm taking chemo. Is that okay? And I'm like, yes, it's encompassing it. It's all part of it. I'm not against Western medicine. I just think that it needs to play a part. Right. But when we keep depending on Western medicine to fix a problem that doesn't get fixed, or like we're still getting the symptoms or we're still getting the same results, then we need to explore another way.
Right. Try different rather than harder all the time, right? It's like, yeah.
And the first question in my intake form is, what would you like help with, or what are you seeking help with? And some people will go, I don't know, like so-and-so just told me I need to come see you.
Yeah.
The next question is what medications you're on. And sometimes they need more room.
Oh, ouch.
Don't see that as a problem because it's being taken care of because of the medication.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is probably causing even more problems.
Right. The counter.
Just saying.
taking this one to counteract the effects of this one to counteract the effects of this
Right.
one.
And yet it could be all one root problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And oftentimes it's never what they think it is, right? It's never the problem that they think it is.
Yeah.
And what I loved when I came for a session with you, Tyla, was the complete change of perspective, like, and not even realizing, but when you brought it up, that I was feeling something, in the background, but not even exactly comprehending what it was. And, just having the conversation and the shift in perception was huge. Leaving there, it was just like, wow, for one, somebody understands what I'm going through. And I didn't even realize what I was going through. You know what I mean? Like it was very profound. So it was beautiful. And I mean, for anybody that's searching or looking or in pain or anything, I mean, definitely try it out, whether, like you said, whether it's with you or somebody else, right?
And there was another client, when I first got into Body Talk, I was like, I thought everyone needed to have this. And I would, I was at a friend's place, she had a hair salon, and he walked in to talk to her, and he kind of moved his shoulder, and he's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, what's the matter? So I didn't even give him an opportunity. I'm like, come, I'll help you. And so I did a quick technique on his shoulder, and he was scheduled for shoulder surgery, and he never had to go. And so then and I mean, I kind of forgot about it and stuff, but shortly after that, I had come into an establishment, and he was there, and he's like, hey, that's my witch doctor. And I was like, oh. But he was if I would have gave him the opportunity if I would have asked, he would have never said yes.
Right.
But I didn't even give him the opportunity. I mean, that was not in my intention. I was just excited to try my new technique and see if it would work. And but he was profound that he didn't have to go back for surgery. And it was literally a 2-3 minute little thing that I did. Another client, when I was in Regina, one client had home parties, kind of like Tupperware or and there was one girl, of course, she sat in the front row, and she was not. And so when I got called to do a demo, she was, of course, chosen. And she had plantar fasciitis, and she'd been doctoring for 9 months. She couldn't work, she couldn't stand. It was that painful. The only thing that she could do physically was swim. That was the only exercise that she could do. And so the session led to digging her heels in. And it was this experience that her aunt had asked her to paint her kitchen, and she said no. So her aunt went and hired somebody else, and something happened, and he fell and broke his hip, and everything was prepped, and now she had no one to paint. And so guess who went and painted the kitchen?
Oh boy.
Lady, even though she said she wasn't going to do it. And so literally it was that story, digging her heels in, standing her ground, saying I'm not going to do something, and then eventually doing it anyway. And that was all being stored in the heels. And literally the public presentation was maybe 2 hours. So it was maybe a half hour. And I said, how are your ankles feeling? And she's like, well, way better, but I'll call you tomorrow when they're back for vengeance. And that was it. She never had, it totally went away just by that one.
Wow.
And she said, where were you 9 months ago? Right? Because they'd been doctoring 9 months of trying to alleviate this discomfort. But that's the thing. If you cut me open, you're not going to find emotions.
Right.
But God, do they affect me?
Yes.
Right? When I'm in a bad mood, my whole body, I feel it in my whole body.
Yeah.
100%.
Yet we don't know, we've never really been taught to experience them or be okay with them or to allow them to do all of us just want to be happy. But all of the emotions serve a purpose. Anger moves us. So I now know that when I'm angry, my house gets cleaned very quickly, and very effectively. I let the energy move me.
Right.
in a positive, and then it's gone. I've moved through it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Love it.
So it's so encompassed, and it's just, if you think of any body talk, if you have any discomfort in any body part, you think of its function and start exploring what's happening in that area. So the ankles are all about decisions, because they direct us where we move forward. The knee is to move us forward. The hips are all about our stability and security. So we can look at each body part and go, it's not just a body part. There's a conscious awareness of what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
So
James
it's more,
says,
so
wow.
more in depth. Our body's so more in depth than just physical.
They do, for sure. James is saying, wow, a tie into fascia memory.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And we store it because we weren't able to process or digest those emotions at that time it was happening, which is, I mean, it's amazing that our body can do that. But then if you've ever put away something that you never need, you never go back and look for it.
Right.
So you get the symptom and then you're like, what is this?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the symptoms are just getting our attention.
Yes.
They're that little 2-year-old going, mom, 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 until you actually hear them and say, what? They just want to be heard. There's a story there that needs to be listened to.
Yes, it needs to be released, right? It needs you to feel it.
And acknowledge it and see what's there.
Yes.
And sometimes I tell people it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, right? If there's a wound, something hurts you, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to rip off the Band-Aid, expose the wound, expose the hurt, so it can heal. Because otherwise it's just going to fester.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to mention is that body talk is not talk therapy. So no one has to talk. My brother, actually, when he first had his first session, I was like quite a few links in, and he's like, okay, are you starting? And I'm like, oh, I'm already, and he's like, I mean, I didn't have to say anything. And I'm like, oh no, you don't talk. I consult your innate wisdom, and your innate wisdom navigates me through. And he's like, oh, if I knew I didn't have to talk, I would have did this a long time ago. And he had to like tell me,
divulge things.
And for the first time, I realized that I didn't know that people would kind of get caught up in that because of the word body talk.
Right.
So some people come and they don't tell me anything. They don't talk. They just lay and enjoy the session. And other people want, when some things come up, they do want to share. And I mean, I welcome them too, because it's a part of their journey and part of their experience to be able to be heard. But some people choose not to, and that's okay too. I don't need to know the details.
Mm-hmm.
Your body will only give me as much details as I need, so your body is aware of what we're working with.
Right. And so you're not reading people's minds. It's not that kind of an intuition. It's you're reading what their body is giving to you. So they don't have to worry about, oh, she's going to know this about me. That's not what it's about. Yeah.
And you'll know, there's clients that as soon as I say something, I can feel their whole body shift. They know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that needs to know. The other thing that's important is that body talk only works by priority. So even if somebody comes in with an agenda of saying like, this is what I want to work on, we really, I mean, I'm considerate of that, but we really allow the body to tell me what's most important. Because if someone's coming in because they have a hockey injury and it's a knee problem and they're having some heart stuff, the priority is the heart stuff, not the knee.
Right.
We'll get to the knee, but I mean, they might not even know they have heart stuff at this point. So it's really allowing that innate wisdom to decide what is the priority. Mm-hmm. It's the innate wisdom that guides the whole session.
Right.
It's not even my, like sometimes I feel like, why do I even take an intake form? Because, you know, and we take it so that people can see where they were, you know, at the start, right? Versus at the end of, you know, 3 months or 4 months or whatever. But
wow. You have some fans that are in the comments, so you'll have to you'll have to read. There's a few people talking about that they've gone to you for sessions and how amazing it was. And
Well, that's good.
yeah, awesome stuff.
And the other thing is I have a hard time taking credit because it's the client that does the work. I just facilitate and observe. They're the ones making the shifts. They're the ones that are changing. They're the ones that are making it all happen. Because I can't do the work for anyone. It's them. I just hold the space.
Okay.
All of the admiration, those clients need to look at themselves and give themselves credit for the work that they've done. Because it's, in the end, it's them that are making the shifts and changes.
Yeah, beautiful. It looks like Tamla decided to leave us.
Might have been a bad connection.
What's that?
I said it might have been a bad connection.
Yeah, it could
froze before she signed off.
Yeah, she might not be able to come back in just the way it's set up.
Yep.
So, but that's okay. But we are at the end of it all, and we can't do squirrel shots because Tamla has the squirrel shot on.
And she worked so hard in the beginning to make sure she had those.
Oh my goodness, yeah, she I'm sure has a list of them, but anyway, it's all good.
You can always send them to me and I can
my
back if the listeners want to know my squirrel shots.
Yeah, exactly. But I do want to ask my final question before we close everything up, which is, if you could climb to the highest mountain and the whole world could hear you, what would you say?
I would say this is your life and live your best life.
That's beautiful.
Don't let other people decide for you.
Love it. Yeah. And I think that's so important. How many of us, don't even clue into that until you're halfway through your life or more, right? Or don't ever clue into it.
Yeah. And I have some young clients like elementary school or high school students, and when they come, I'm like, I get so jealous because I'm like, you have no idea the gift your parents are giving you to be able to work through your stuff at such a young age, and to be able to work through those some really deep concepts and to really start getting to know yourself at such a deep level. So I'm very grateful that I'm a seeker and that this is my path. It's not everyone's path, and that's okay too. And because we're all here doing whatever we're doing, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So if there's something calling you that you want more out of life, then I do suggest finding a body talk practitioner, or start exploring what that is that's calling you, because it's not going to get quieter. It'll only get louder as you ignore it.
That from experience. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tyla. It's been an amazing conversation, and our guests were just loving it. You'll have to go back and read the comments. And
is there any other questions? I
didn't see any more, but sometimes I miss them as things are going by. But anyway, I think it's time for us to close. And I
just want to let people know that they can find me on in Esterhazy, 740-9306, or you can find me on my website, which you can also book online, and see some of the courses that I also offer, and that's www.elevatemindbody.therapy.com. So I can put it in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Please do. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And Tamala's in the group now. Please post your contact information for the group, Tyla, she says. Awesome. Well, thanks for everything.
Thank you, Pamela and Cindy. That was wonderful. Good job on the network. I do enjoy all the information you bring.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have everybody realize that, it's not where they're at isn't where they have to stay, right? And there's so many options out there, and we just love bringing it to people, and so they can see maybe that is what's pulling me, something like this, right?
Yep.
So thank you so much, Tyla.
Thank you. Good night,
And have
everyone.
a wonderful night. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Okay.